We're almost there, y'all. Welcome back to Street Scores. It's your boy Rico giving y'all a draft edition of Redskins Report. Sorry for the long wait on videos. Had to do a lot of film study and research to get y'all this video. But here I am. I'm here to present y'all my second 2019 mock draft. This is more of a mock about what I want to happen and not necessarily what I think will happen. The educated guess on what the Redskins will actually do and not what I want them to do is coming shortly before the draft on April 25th. But this one right here is what I want them to do. Also, with all of my mock drafts, there will be trades, surprises, and all kinds of mess before and during the draft, so this won't be perfect. This is what I want to happen based off of the picks we currently have. So let's get it. Well, here it is. Of course, I like to show y'all exactly what the picks are, 1st through 7th rounds, and then I dive into why I selected these players. And then at the end, I also have some free agents to list off that I want the Redskins to look at, but that's for the end. Right now, we need to get to this important content, and that's DK going in the 1st, Nasir Adderley going in the 2nd, Jalen Ferguson going in the 3rd, Michael DEITER going in the 3rd also. Then our 2 5th-round picks being used to select Cameron Smith and Elise Mack, our 6th round pick to pick Sharif Miller, and then our last 2 picks, Jon'vea Johnson and Calvin Anderson. But it's time to break this down. Round 1, wide receiver DK Metcalf out of Ole Miss. Last mock I did, I had this man possibly making it to the 2nd round. Now, after watching all of this film, that's a win now. I'm hoping he makes it to the 15th pick. I know there's some people out there that don't really like him a lot, and I don't really understand it. This is truly a unique prospect in this draft. In my opinion, this draft has a few tiers, and I'm talking about just pure talent and rare quality. Nick Bosa, Quinnen Williams, and DK Metcalf are in tier 1 in my opinion. Then there's Devin Bush, Jonah Williams, and Josh Allen in tier 2. And then there's everybody else. I would be elated if DK fell to us. He is a top 7 player in this draft to me. He is a very unique talent with Julio Jones, Josh Gordon, Calvin Johnson type potential, and a floor of about Martavis Bryant's best years. Unless DK gets hurt, of course, he is a walk-in mismatch. He is unfair for any defense and defender. And let me tell y'all why. Starting with the positives, and there's a lot of them. He is a speed god. At 6'3", 228 pounds, he ran a 4.33 40-yard dash at the combine. He didn't even hurt himself to do it. He made it look easy. His athleticism is unfair. Nobody that big should be able to move that fast. He is a very unique vertical threat. He ran a 40 times faster than 5'10" Deshaun Jackson, while being 5 inches taller and 53 pounds heavier. He's even heavier than 6'5" Mike Evans. I'm just trying to paint y'all a picture of how rare this man's athleticism truly is. This man is different. Hasn't been a receiver in the draft like him in a while, and there won't be another one for another while. Also, his high catch point and large catch radius are great, especially for an inaccurate quarterback. He just struggles with his timing on his jumps at times. He missed times when he should jump, which is surprisingly something Josh Doctson is best at. But then DK is just better at everything else involved with contested catches than Josh Doctson. Aggressively catching the ball, boxing out the defender, willingness to take some hits, and securely coming down with the ball. And his catch radius is definitely larger. And then there's his elite acceleration. Why is a human that big able to reach top speed that fast? And then there's his strength and willingness to make contact. He is very shifty and fast, but also does a great job of forcing defenders to make business decisions with his willingness to run people over with his 6'3", 228-pound build. He is a huge person to bring down. Defenders act like they're scared to tackle Jordan Reed, and DK Metcalf is a whole inch taller, even though he does weigh a little bit less. But not enough less. Just look at him. He's the one on the left. Why would you want to tackle this man? The NFL does not pay enough for me to go consistently tackle this man with all of my might throughout the course of an NFL game. 4 quarters of dealing with that? Tackling him feels like you're the one getting tackled. But back to the analysis. His explosiveness out of breaks are crazy. Great footwork, unbelievable acceleration. His lateral quickness is great. It's not fair for him to be that big and yet as shifty and quick as a small slot receiver like Jamison Crowder and Trey Quinn. And the last pure positive is how he uses his size and length to block well. You can depend on him to hem up defensive backs and allow ball carriers to run towards DK with no worry of getting tackled out of nowhere by who DK is blocking. Very dependable. But now on to his complicated positives. Catching. He's an aggressive catcher that goes and gets the ball, but he does have quite a few drops on tape. He goes and gets the ball out of the air, which is ideal for any wide receiver. It's hard to learn how to do this once you haven't been aggressive catching your entire football career. And luckily, he already has it. Also, his tape shows limited routes, but that's Ole Miss's fault, not DK's. He has shown the ability to run other routes when allowed to, but he was just rarely allowed to. They had him running go routes and curls all day, every day. Either run full speed to the end zone or pretend to run the full speed to the end zone, then just suddenly stop, creating a ridiculous amount of separation. Simple and predictable, and yet, for DK's case, unstoppable. But like I said, the times he ran a different route, which he rarely did, like a slant, he dominated the defender covering him, gaining plenty of separation. But Ole Miss saw this separation and was like, nah, we don't want it. And his last complicated positive is his production stat-wise. His yards per reception of 21.9 was the 4th highest in college football last year. But overall, he lacked any real production, which is not his fault really. DK finished the 2018 season with just 26 receptions for 569 yards. And the year before, when he played 12 games, he still only finished with 39 receptions for 646 yards. And here's the background story. A.J. Brown was the slot receiver, safety blanket for Ole Miss's quarterback. And the routes Ole Miss had DK running didn't help DK's case, with him running a lot of vertical routes, which are hard to throw to, especially when you aren't a great quarterback. Even with all of the separation DK somehow created running these simple, predictable routes. So I say this to say that he wasn't targeted much at all, which wasn't his fault. And he suffered a neck injury after 7 games played in 2018, so he missed the rest of the season. That's why his stats look so bad. But his yards per reception provide a lot of hope. Now on to his negatives. His only true negative and worry is that he had a neck injury in the past 2018 season. He missed all but 7 games due to this injury. And even though a lot of sources have reported that the neck injury isn't anything to worry about moving forward, a neck injury is very serious, and I understand why teams are worried about it. But since he had that neck injury, he had that crazy 40 time and 27 bench reps. Looks like it didn't affect him at all. Also, one last negative, DK had terrible shuttle and 3-cone times at the combine. Both of his were worse than Tom Brady's. That is crazy. So this indicates that his change of direction is terrible. But I don't put too much stock into this because why would he even have to change direction that much? What route is he running to where he needs to put that shuttle and 3-cone drill into use? Those complicated routes are for receivers who aren't fast enough and big enough to get open with simple routes. DK is both faster and bigger than any defensive back that will cover him. His speed will have defensive backs playing back to prevent him from beating them deep. And when they do that, his ability to immediately stop and come back to the ball is unfair and will have him open almost every time. You can't jam him. He will get you out of the way and race you down the field for a big play. And then there's the slant route, which is not fair at all. No matter if they press or play back, his slant route creates a ridiculous amount of space. His acceleration is second to none, and with how defensive backs will have to play passive in order to not get beat downfield, he can decide which way he wants to beat who's covering him. Defensive backs will be at his mercy with just those 3 routes alone: goes, hitches, and slants. Any other route is extra. So I personally am not worried about his inability to change direction multiple times in a route. His instant change of direction on things like comeback, slants, hitches, posts, and ends, where you only have to change direction once in the route, is elite. He just struggles to change directions more than once. So all in all, if we use him correctly, he is a dream come true for the Redskins. He is truly a generational type of talent that is as rare gets. But unfortunately for him, and fortunately for us, he may slide down to the 15th pick due to his lack of production, which is all Ole Miss's fault and not his. and also his games missed due to his neck injury that some teams may be too worried about to take him early in the first round. If you use him correctly and take advantage of his positives, which are all elite, then he's well on his way to the Hall of Fame. But if you try to make him do things that he's not great at, then you'll have some problems. But why would you even want to force him to do those other things when the things he does he's so elite at, nobody can stop him anyway? But with his lack of production and injury scare, this is as great of a recipe as it gets for the Redskins picking 15th overall to get a player that has the talent to go in the top 3. It's just like Jonathan Allen when they came out with the arthritis thing right before the draft. We should not have been able to land him at the 17th pick? If DK somehow slides to the 15th pick, I don't see any reason not to draft him. With how much the Redskins love being average, I don't see us drafting in the top 5 to have our pick at all of the best talent in upcoming drafts. We will always be at the mercy of the many teams picking before us. And if somehow we get the legendarily rare chance to get a top 3 talent in the draft and a wide receiver talent we haven't seen in years at the 15th pick, then we have to take it. It fills a huge need of ours. And even if we had a proven playmaking receiver on our roster, then DK would still obviously be the best player available at the 15th pick. And having 2 wide receivers isn't a bad thing. I know, that's taboo in this organization, but hear me out. Why don't we try to do what winning teams do instead of doing what the Redskins have done the past few years and see where that goes? An next receiver destined for Pro Bowls, if he has even a competent quarterback and play caller, in my opinion, the only thing stopping him from being a Hall of Famer is injuries or a team that just somehow folds and doesn't use them correctly. I mean, you can literally tell this man just, as soon as the ball is hiked, run forward. He's going to beat everybody in front of him. I don't get it. Round 2, free safety Nasir Adderley out of Delaware. With Landon Collins being one of the best strong safeties in the league, even at only 25 years old, and with his underrated range and ability to cover, we are set at strong safety for a while. Now we just need a true free safety to complete this no-fly zone deep in the backfield. Our last line of defense can be the best young safety duo if we draft Nasir. He played for Delaware, and he was a 2-star recruit coming out of high school, so a lot of people don't have them on their radar. And just a few months ago, Nasir could have easily have slipped past the 2nd round, and still might because of his recent ankle and hamstring injury. But at this point in the draft process, I wouldn't even be surprised if he went late in the 1st, even with his recent injuries. And let me tell y'all why. Let's start with the main reason why we need him. His range is crazy. I wouldn't say it's elite, but on tape, because that's all we have since he couldn't run in the 40 at the combine and couldn't finish his 40 at his pro day. But on tape, he looks very fast. He definitely has the range to scare quarterbacks from even trying to throw it deep on us. And if they do, he can go and make a play on it and possibly pick it off. I'd guess that he was going to run somewhere in the 440s in the 40-yard dash based off his range on tape. And he's not just fast. He has a great closing burst to get to the throwing windows just in time to contest and knock the ball down. He also has shown the IQ to read and react as a single high safety with timing. He isn't fooled. Great instincts from the single high safety position, which is great if Landon Collins wants to be in the box as much as possible. Now his secret weapon is how great he is at man coverage. He's a very similar prospect to Minkah Fitzpatrick, who can play both safety positions and outside corner. Now Nasir didn't play much corner these last 2 years since transferring from corner to safety 2 years ago. He is best at off-man coverage with his ability to burst like I mentioned earlier when he's playing single high safety. Also, when he translates the IQ, instincts, patience, and burst that he uses as single high safety to zone coverage from the outside corner position, he is also very effective. But as far as man coverage, he has the footwork and hips to mirror receivers very well. He just doesn't get his head turned around to contest balls as much as I would like, but he is very good at recognizing routes and plays. His instincts are ridiculous. You can tell he watches a lot of film, and then he also has the physical ability to go take that film study and turn it into production on the field. It looks as if he's in the offensive huddle a lot of the time. That's one of those things you either have or you don't. If he was bigger, he would be a really good linebacker with these instincts. And even though he doesn't get his head turned around as much as I would like when the ball is in the air, his ball skills are still great. Also another one of those you have it or you don't type things. Logically, it seems like something you should be able to teach somebody, But generally, when people enter the NFL without those type of ball skills, they never really gain it. Nasir has it already. He has a knack for converting great coverage into batted balls or interceptions. He does a great job of jumping with receivers and getting his hands into the catch point. And thank goodness he doesn't go for big hits. He consistently goes for the ball. He makes sure he plays on the ball, which is the most important thing. He's out here looking for turnovers instead of just some fancy hits. Now, even though he is an excellent free safety prospect, he also has a lot of great box safety traits. First of all, his tackling is as good as it gets from a college safety. He wraps up low and drives through the contact to bring ball carriers down. But whenever the opportunity presents itself, he will always lay a big hit. I feel sorry for receivers running routes in front of him, because he will definitely lay them out. He is not afraid of contact. And not only is he not afraid of the contact of a big hit, but he also maintains great form with the big hit. He's not just leading with his head and depending on his momentum to take down the ball carrier. He also generally takes good angles to the ball carriers. He's wrapping them up with the big hits. There's no escaping him. He also generally takes good angles to the ball carriers, but he does sometimes get a little too aggressive and end up taking a slightly bad angle because of it. But I prefer him to be overly aggressive than too passive. And with his great instincts and excellent tackling, his run defense is unmatched, especially amongst free safeties. And even more especially amongst free safeties who can man cover. But to put the cherry on top, he is also very physical with taking on blocks. He will plow into blocks full force, no fear. And even if that doesn't work, he uses his hands to shed blocks. He also isn't afraid to join in on gang tackles. He wants to be involved in every play. If the ball is thrown, he wants to be the one to make the play on it. If the ball is being ran, he wants to be the one to make the big hit. And even if he can't, he will join in with whoever delivers the first blow to make sure that ball carrier is brought down. This leads me to his toughness and unique competitive nature. He is very physical. At 6 foot, 206 pounds, he isn't afraid of any player on the field. Not really a let me make this business decision type of defender. They just don't make competitors like this often. He plays like his life depends on it every game, every down. Even in blowout losses, this man is playing at 110% from start to finish, flying everywhere, taking people's heads off, getting in on plays he has no business being parts of, making plays way outside of his responsibility, chasing people down from behind. If there's ever a person that cares too much, it is this guy. Now on to his athleticism and conditioning. He never looks tired. With his extreme competitive nature and ability to never run out of stamina, he reminds me a lot of my favorite basketball player, Russell Westbrook. He has no friends on the other team between them 4 quarters, and he looks to be never tired or worn down. Out of everybody's film I've watched so far, nobody else cares about football as much as this man. He is out there to win no matter what, but he also comes with some pretty freakish athleticism. Now, his athleticism isn't as elite and unique as Westbrook's, but he's not far from it. And like I mentioned earlier, if he ran the 40 time, he was projected to run somewhere in the 440s. His hips are very loose and he can change direction very easily, very smooth transitions. He has great bursts and can take off running immediately. He is fast, but his short area movement is excellent also. When you really think about it, like I said earlier, with all of these traits, he would be an all-pro linebacker if he just somehow put on an extra 40 pounds. Now, we do have Monte Nicholson, who has surprising range, but this man, Nasir Adderley, is the ultimate Swiss Army knife. He can literally play any position in the 3rd level. Outside corner, single high safety, box safety, nickel corner, and even slot corner if necessary. Monte Nicholson does not tackle well, and as a result, not only misses tackles, but also hurts himself a lot, giving himself concussions, and Monte Nicholson is also not very good at man coverage. Nasir is a single high free safety that can come down and play any DB position, which would make scheming up defensive sets and coverages so fun, with Landon Collins being underrated in coverage and range, so he can play a little free safety better than most people think, even though I would not say he is dominant at it at all. So having Nasir and Landon all over the field would not only be more fun for them, and they would take a lot of pride in the challenge and the complicated activity, but it would also confuse offenses. They wouldn't know who is doing what on any given play. They would wreak havoc as a duo. And Nasir's ability to be effective at corner would take pressure off of our cornerback group that isn't the most established right now. He's a can't miss prospect, other than the possibility of injuries, but that's true for anybody. He doesn't have some extensive injury history that just shows that he's just destined to get hurt again. He's just had some minor ones recently. If he's available in the second round, Redskins, y'all better sprint up there and take that man. Round 3, edge rusher Jalen Ferguson out of LA Tech. We have a pretty big need at edge rusher coming into the draft, but DK and Nasir are too great to pass up. And they are also positions of need, especially wide receiver. And also, I don't have much faith in Ryan Anderson, but we can see what he can do out there. But even without Ryan Anderson, Jalen Ferguson is an interesting prospect with some NFL-ready traits that can easily make it to the 3rd round, maybe even further. But let's talk about his positives and negatives. Starting with the negatives, Jalen is very stiff. His bend is pretty sad, not flexible. He is also an average athlete. He cannot redirect well. He also can't cover well at all. All of these traits lead him to being far better as a 4-3 defensive end rather than a 3-4 outside linebacker. But that's not a problem for us, because even though we are technically a 3-4, we are in nickel the majority of the time anyway. Last year we ran Preston Smith, John Allen, Deron Payne, and Ryan Kerrigan in the trenches most of the time. Jalen would just be taking Preston Smith's place, which I feel like is a perfect fit and some great value in the 3rd round. And let me talk about this value. Let's get to these positives. Even though he isn't very athletic, he has some pretty good burst off the snap. He's not super explosive because his athleticism holds him back some, but he is very good at learning opposing offenses' cadences. As games progress, he gets a better feel, and then he gets to the point where he seems to know the snap count like the offensive lineman. So he makes up for his lack of athleticism by learning and adapting the snap count and getting an early start. And this good burst and snap count recognition, along with some good strength, makes him an ideal run-stopping defensive end. He keeps his pad level low, which is one of the most important parts of being in the trenches. He does not get moved back, and on top of all of that, he has very active and creative hands. That is definitely his best trait. His hands are without question already where they need to be for the NFL. His hands are strong and violent. He has an arsenal of moves, and he uses them appropriately. His counters are limited by his lack of elite speed and ability to change direction, but great hands help make up for some of it and allow him to beat initially good blocks at times. Another mental positive he has, on top of his ability to learn cadences and use them to his advantage, is that he does a good job of recognizing pass sets and using the best option to attack the blocker in front of him's weaknesses. He also plays bigger than what he is, converting speed into power. And something very important is that he is good at setting the edge. He's not good at getting around the edge with his lack of speed and bend, but he can definitely set it with his powerful and active hands. And then he can shed his blocker to make the tackle. And even though a lot of his traits sound far more suited for run stopping and edge setting, he somehow found a way to get to the quarterback. So much so, he set the NCAA record for sacks in a college career with 45, even though the statistic wasn't being tracked until the 2000 season. So if he doesn't have anything, he definitely has production. Technically the most productive edge defender in college since at least the year 2000. A lot of his sacks come from using his good ball get off and then length and strength to bull rush offensive tackles into the quarterback's lap, and then he gets rid of them with his active hands and then takes the quarterback down. He also looks to strip the quarterback, not just bring them down. He's trying to make splash plays. All in all, I would be happy to get him in the 3rd round, and it's realistic that he may slide that far. Redskins better snatch him up if he makes it to the 76th overall pick. This could be your future starter at the outside linebacker spot opposite of Ryan Kerrigan. Round 3, offensive lineman Michael DEITER out of Wisconsin. You just simply can't go wrong with an offensive lineman from Wisconsin. They're not as good as my Georgia Bulldogs, but like, who is? But back to the point, Wisconsin consistently puts out some productive offensive linemen, usually with some mean streaks too, which is great to have in the NFL. You need some attitude and anger issues to play in the trenches, and Michael DEITER has some of that. He also has some versatility. Even though he's played some center and mostly played tackle in 2017, his best position is definitely guard. but his experience playing every position on the offensive line definitely helps. Mentally, he knows how each of the positions should be played, which not only helps with his communication and chemistry with the other two offensive linemen around him, but if the Redskins get in a dark situation, like we have been in the past 2 years, then in case of emergency, break glass, and you can move Michael DEITER to any other position on the offensive line to fill in for the injured starter until the starter comes back. But that would not be ideal because he does not have the footwork or length to play tackle well. But, like I said, in case of emergency, break glass. Also, a positive in his mental category is that he detects and processes stunts very well. Defensive line confusion doesn't catch him off guard. He reads right through all of it. Athleticism-wise, he's very mobile. His mobility allows him to pass protect very well against interior pass rushers, and it also allows him to pull very effectively. And as a bonus, while pulling, he is good at gathering himself to make a big hit at the second level with some low pad level, which allows him to get linebackers and defensive backs out of the paint fairly easily. Another positive in his athleticism is that he has good balance. Even with how mobile he is, he also manages to have a good anchor and balance, so he does not get pushed around backward or off his feet. He holds his ground, even at times when he is at a disadvantage, which leads me back to his lack of length. Due to his lack of length, he is not able to consistently land the first strike on defensive linemen, which gets him in trouble. He makes up for it though with balance and a strong anchor, but that doesn't always bail him out. And unfortunately, you can't teach length. It doesn't get him in trouble often at all, but it is something to be wary of. But when he does manage to get his hands on defensive linemen, which he does most of the time, he has sticky, strong hands that keeps defenders hemmed up a good majority of the time. He's got the clamps. Pass protection wise, he has the smooth footwork and mobility to stand in front of interior rushers. Finesse moves like spins and stunts don't work on Michael. But Michael also doesn't allow himself to get out muscle and push back into his quarterback with that strong anchor of his. And his sticky and strong hands keep defenders latched onto him and keep them in front of him while the quarterback does what he has to do. And when he does get his hands on the defenders first, you see a nice punch, and run block wise, his length limits him, but he still consistently wins. He doesn't get pushed back because of his strong anchor, and he has enough strength to sometimes push defensive linemen backward. He also does a great job of finding leverage points and turning his feet to get some push on defensive linemen to create some running lanes. He would definitely fill in very well at the starting left guard spot that we have currently vacant, and right out of the gate too, with his very well refined technique. He's a day one starter that could be very good, but doesn't have a very high ceiling due to his lack of length. But he does have a very high floor. Round 5. Inside linebacker Cameron Smith out of USC. Reuben Foster may be suspended for a few games. Zach Brown was released for cap space, and Mason Foster may also be released for some cap space. So our inside linebacker squad may be a little thin for a while, and I feel like we should draft an inside linebacker in the later rounds to add some depth and competition. And in the 5th round, drafting Cameron Smith would be some great value and practically a steal. Of course, starting with the negatives. One of his most consistent negatives is that he can be impatient at times and jump the gun a little too early on his reads. He also doesn't get low enough to take on blocks better. He also doesn't exactly know how to use his hands to shed blocks as well as he should be able to with his 6'1", 250-pound frame. He does not have above average athleticism and is pretty stiff in his lower body, so his coverage skills struggle at times due to physical problems, but not mental. He has a very average top end speed. He also isn't explosive or very quick and twitchy. So pretty much the majority of his negatives are physical ones. His tackling only struggles due to his limited speed and range. Now the positives, which are pretty much all mental. He has a very high football IQ and is very quick to react. He is very instinctive. He is another player who looks like he knows the play before the ball is hyped, just like Nasir Adderley. It looks like Cameron was in the offensive huddle on some plays. And honestly, I'd take an instinctive, average athleticism inside linebacker any day over an athletic freak that can't understand and process what's going on, or even if he does, isn't able to react to it as fast as he should. That first step in any given play is the most important for every inside linebacker. Sean Lee, for example, the Cowboys linebacker, makes plays consistently, and he is even slower than Cameron Smith. which means he's slow. But Sean Lee's ability to read and react and almost always make the correct first step allows him to be involved and be in the right spots to make plays very consistently. Sean Lee ruins games for the Redskins whenever he's healthy. But back to Cameron Smith. His ability to read and react allows him to beat blockers to holes regularly. And he is also able to get skinny to avoid blockers' hands and then be able to quickly reset his hips to make a square and sound wrap-up tackle. So even though he isn't fast, because he knows what's going to happen, he's able to get in position early enough to where a blocker doesn't even get in his way that much. He is a tackle for loss machine because of this, knowing where the ball is going before the ball is hyped. He is also good at pursuing plays through all kinds of traffic and keeping his eyes on the prize. He flies through all of the garbage in the way and finds a way to stay in front of the play, or at least in a good enough angle to make a play. And he is also quick to identify pullers and climbers and is able to meet them quickly and with a lot of physical force. He isn't afraid of contact at all. And now, even though he isn't explosive, he does have some pretty solid short area bursts and good enough length and size to make tackles you wouldn't expect him to make. And even though he isn't twitchy and quick enough to cover small, fast, refined route running receivers, he is actually pretty good with dealing with tight ends in coverage, which is a pretty big plus for us, because tight ends eat the Redskins alive consistently. All in all, his limitations are pretty much all physical. His positives are pretty much all mental. This is why he is a high floor, low ceiling prospect. Definitely a solid to good starter, but doesn't have much room to grow at all. What you get day one is pretty much what you're gonna get. He can start immediately and possibly improve on how he attacks blockers and improve his block shedding, but other than that, he's not gonna learn speed or gain length. Cameron Smith is a good prospect that wouldn't normally make it to the 5th round, but with edge still being the second most important position in football and interior pass rushers like Aaron Donald and Quinnen Williams, so quarterbacks can't step up in the pocket, is becoming almost third most important, if not right on par with outside rush. So inside linebackers are becoming less and less coveted. If the defensive line is doing its job, then the inside linebackers don't even have to be elite to have a top 5 defense. Just need to know their roles, plug holes, and be able to move laterally with some speed and fluidity. Now don't get me wrong, inside linebacker is nowhere near obsolete. We will notice a big difference in our defense once Reuben Foster joins the starting lineup. So I'm not saying inside linebacker is obsolete, but we had a top 5 defense like 8 games into last season with Mason Foster and Zach Brown. And many of y'all can't stand Mason Foster mostly because of his speed. And Zach Brown was hurt a lot of last year, so he wasn't 100%. And he can't even cover when healthy. And I'm saying all of this just to explain why somebody with as much talent as Cameron Smith could very possibly make it this far in the draft. Teams just simply covet other positions and other types of talent more than inside linebacker these days. Round 5, tight end Elise Mack out of Notre Dame. Jordan Reed playing a full season is a dream. Vernon Davis may get released for cap space, even though I wouldn't want him to be cut at all. He's just too valuable. So our future tight end situation is a little struggle. Even our current tight end situation going into 2019 is a little dark. So I would love for Mack to make it to the 5th round. The only reason I don't want us to take him before inside linebacker Cameron Smith is because I feel like inside linebacker may be a bigger need right now, but Mack is definitely a more exciting prospect, and here's why. He is a unique athlete. In the passing game, his speed, strength, and length are rare with a lot of upside. He has a very good top speed and gets to it very fast. Similar to DK Metcalf, he is very fast, but his change of direction is a little tragic. Great vertical speed, but tragic in transitional speed and horizontal cuts. And even with that slow change of direction and an inability to really separate from defenders on routes other than vertical ones, his ability to make contested catches helps him out a lot. He doesn't separate often, but he will box out a defender and haul in a contested catch with good hands, great body control, and the awareness to go grab the ball as soon as possible and haul it into his body and protect it. He can also leap very high to where even when defenders are covering him well, they don't really get a chance to contest the catch because the defender isn't able to get a hand in the way. Now he does have the occasional drop, but it's nothing to worry about. He has definitely proven that he has strong enough hands to make aggressive catches in traffic. And again, he's similar to DK to where he's very fast and accelerates really well, but DK has really good change of direction on the initial change of direction, but struggles when he has to do it multiple times within a route. Mac, on the other hand, just any change of direction is a little struggle for him. If he's not just running straight up the field, it looks a little awkward for him. And like I said, he is really good at contested catches, but when he makes catches, his yards after catch ability is not very existent. He's not elusive, which again, he's similar to DK Metcalf in some ways, but this is not it. DK Metcalf is a yards after catch monster. After he has the ball in his hands, he is very elusive. Mac, on the other hand, does not have the agility to make people miss and doesn't have the power to consistently break through tackles like you'd expect somebody with a lack of agility to do. He is definitely more of a possession receiver. He struggles with going from a catcher to a runner. Where he catches the ball is more than likely where he's going to be tackled too. He is able to get extra yards when he catches the ball vertically and is in stride because he has great breakaway speed. But getting past people that are in front of him once he already has the ball is something you just don't expect him to do. Blocking wise, he definitely has the build and strength to be an effective blocker in both run and pass protection, but his attitude towards putting his all into it is not there yet. He doesn't impose his will like he should be able to with the build he has. But this doesn't mean he's a bad blocker. He's pretty good at run blocking and even better in pass protection. But he can definitely be better. Easily. He just doesn't apply himself all the way. He doesn't have the mean streak you want somebody blocking to have. But at least he does look for work. If there's no obvious defender for him to block, he will go and find somebody to block, even if that means helping somebody else with their block. So he's not afraid of contact and putting his body out there, but I just wish he would get some anger and aggression with his blocking. Because in run blocking, he stands his ground and swallows up defenders, but he doesn't move them back. That's why he's better in pass protection, because he isn't asked to move a defender. He's only asked to just stay in their way and keep them from penetrating, which he's good at. All in all, he can dominate as a deep threat and can scare linebackers and safeties from the slot. He can't create a lot of separation with his route running. He only gains separation through outrunning people with vertical routes. But even when he is well covered, he is a great contested catcher. He doesn't offer any yards after catch potential, but his abilities to make catches through traffic and secure the ball makes him a dependable chain mover on third downs. He can run block pretty well, but he just doesn't move people like I would like. But he is a better pass protector, even though he didn't do it often in college. Round 6, edge Sharif Miller out of Penn State. Wouldn't hurt to have some more edge rusher competition. And this is a high ceiling, low floor prospect. Great burst off the ball. He has a great first step. That's probably his best trait. But after that, it's mostly negatives. But his athleticism allows a lot of room to grow. And Jim Tomsula can possibly fix the negatives. So let's get to them. He doesn't have powerful or creative hands. He tries to win with speed rather than power or some hand technique. He tries to win with his good first step and has no backup plan. When the ball get off doesn't get him the win, he has no backup plan to beat the blocker in front of him. So his ability to get to the quarterback is very limited and happens in spurts. He has a couple of splash plays, but disappears for a lot of the other plays. Run defending wise, due to his lack of strength and hand technique, he offers very little. Once an offensive lineman gets Sharif in his hands, it's pretty much over. Not only because of a lack of strength or hand usage, but also because of a lack of effort. He is not able to stack up offensive tackles to stuff running lanes. He is not able to shed blocks to make the tackle. And again, he has the athleticism to do it easily. He just needs some coaching and time to get it all down. He also has to want to be great. From what I've seen, he's cool with just being average with his lack of extra effort. Now his positives. He has good range in hips, which also proves why he has so much potential. He can run sideline to sideline pretty well. He also has the burst to get to the sideline so that ball carriers can't beat him there and get past the first line of defense. He does very well in space. He is also a solid tackler, even in space. He has a lot of traits to work with. He just has to want to improve. And if anybody can get him to use his hands and play with some tenacity and aggression, it's Jim Tomsula. If anybody can get the most out of his athleticism, it's Jim Tomsula. If Sharif is available at the 206th pick, then I definitely want us to take this man. Late round picks are a great time to get high ceiling, low floor prospects like this. You're not investing too much capital into it, and if he pans out and we can tap into his potential, he could easily be a really good starter or a dominant rotational player. Round 7, wide receiver jon'vea Johnson out of Toledo. Speed demon. At the Toledo Pro Day, jon'vea ran between a 4.33 and a 4.37 40 time. At 6 foot flat and 188 pounds, with that speed, he could easily be a deep threat. And at the very least, he could be a strong special teams returner. That kind of speed has to be useful for the return game. And he's not just some really small speedy guy like Brandon Banks, who returned for us at 5'7" and 150 pounds. jon'vea is 5 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier, and yet ran a significantly faster 40 time. That's a unique combination of size and speed that has to be useful for something. A good game plan, some creative scheming, and some real coaching should be able to turn this man into a playmaker. I can easily see his floor being Tavon Austin and his ceiling being something even better than that. Maybe even a Deshaun Jackson type of player. Because jon'vea isn't just speed, he can play wide receiver. He's a decent route runner with some room to grow, but that's not hard to pick up on with that kind of speed and acceleration. Just need to work on his footwork and his ability to really fake a defender out with convincing cut, head fakes, body direction changes, acceleration, and decisive use of feet movement. As in not just patting around just to do it. He just has to learn the nuances of being a wide receiver. He also needs to work on his hands a little. He doesn't consistently make contested catches, but with his size and speed, along with his ability to get DB's hands off of him, make him a hard receiver to jam. So he isn't in contested situations often anyway. They already have to respect his speed, so they don't want to play too far up on him. But when they do try to jam him, he is pretty good at getting rid of DB's hands and running right by them, getting all kinds of separation. I know he didn't face great competition at Toledo, but it goes both ways now. His quarterback let Nas down a lot. I saw so many plays on film where jon'vea would have 5 or more yards of separation between him and the nearest DB, and the quarterback either wouldn't throw the ball accurate enough for jon'vea to truly make a play on it, or the quarterback just wouldn't see him at all, staring down another receiver since the ball was hyped. Super tragic. But he does need to work on his blocking. He blocks like he's smaller than he is. People just run right around him. His best way to get defenders out of running lanes is undoubtedly for him to truly act like he's running a route and taking the defender or defenders with him. Him actually blocking them does not work too often. His best bet is to scare them into thinking he's running a route and taking them away from the running lane that way. Also, he needs to work on catching more consistently. He will drop open catches for no reason. He is an aggressive catcher that goes and gets the ball, which is what you want. That's ideal. But for some reason, he drops the ball occasionally. But when he does complete the catch with his speed and agility, he is a yards after catch savant. Spin moves, juke moves, or just straight up running past people because he's faster than everybody else on the field. He's just one of those high ceiling prospects that's going to need some time to develop his game. And like I said, if used correctly, his floor could be a Tavon Austin type player with a whole lot of trickery, sweeps, and all kinds of stuff like that. Great special teams returner. But his ceiling, even though not very likely, could be a Deshaun Jackson type of player. We'll see though. And the last pick of the draft, round 7, offensive tackle, Calvin Anderson out of Texas. A great pickup for our last pick in the draft. Eric Flowers was picked up to possibly start at left guard and at the very least provide some offensive tackle depth. But with how much I don't trust him and how bad Jerron Christian looked last year, even though we knew he was a project, and since we lost Ty Nsekhe, and with how our offensive linemen dropped like flies, it couldn't hurt to get another offensive tackle into the mix, especially at least for training camp. Calvin definitely has some negatives, and that's why he may slide to the 7th round. His biggest problem is his hip tightness and lack of flexibility. All of his problems stem from this. His balance isn't where it needs to be because his hip tightness causes him to overextend over the top of his toes. He actually falls over at times because of this. Having tight hips also hurts his pass protection capabilities because he can't flip his hips to adjust to how edge defenders attack him. His tight hips don't allow him to turn his torso as much and as smoothly as you would hope in order to counter edge rusher moves. But in his favor, He has the length that helps make up for his lack of hip fluidity and balance. And he has great length that keeps edge rushers at bay and holds them off so the quarterback can get the ball off peacefully. His length also allows him to get the first punch a lot of the time. He gets his hands on defenders before defenders can get their hands on him. This allows him to maintain control of the battles he's in. Also, he has strong hands that don't lose grip and can even move defenders backwards in run blocking. And he also has the overall strength to drive defenders backwards once he gets his feet churning. And even though his technique isn't there all the way yet, and he's a little late with seeing blitzes and stunts, he has a good basis to start with and grow from. He has some IQ with him already, and some Bill Callahan coaching can definitely get him on the right track. And again, offensive line depth and competition for training camp would not hurt. Calvin's tight hips limit his ceiling, but his length raises it some. He can definitely be a solid backup now and has the potential to be even better. Now, undrafted free agent wise, I'm not going to talk about them too much, just want to list them off. I would like the Redskins to look at wide receiver Justin Christian from Marist College, one of them big play guys from a small school, unknown school that people don't really watch, but he looks like he has some talent on him. Might want to check him out. Also look at cornerback Jamal Peters out of Mississippi State, safety Justin Clifton out of Arkansas State, quarterback Kyle Kempt out of Iowa State. He has a really big build, around 6'4", 6'5", kinda heavy, pro-style, pocket presence type of quarterback. I say it'd be a good idea to just go ahead and give him a shot. And lastly, tight end Matt Sakal out of Michigan State. Some good prospects with multiple traits and relatively high ceilings, but also very low floors. It never hurts to bring depth and competition to training camp. And here's just a few names for the Redskins to consider bringing in after the draft is over. Let's get this team right. But that's it for this 2019 post-combine mock draft. Thanks for the view. I would faint if we finished the draft with these picks. I'm going to bring y'all one more mock draft before the draft on April 25th. And I will also give a review and analysis of the Redskins draft picks after the draft. I got y'all back. Stay locked. Also get in them comments. Let me know who y'all feel the Redskins will and or should draft. Agree, disagree, debate, and while y'all at it, make sure y'all Dolomite Fake punch that like button, favorite, subscribe, I'll subscribe back, and most importantly, comment and share. And again, thank y'all for the support. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.